Hello, hello. Can you all hear me okay? Checking my microphone. How do I select? Well, anyway, hello, this is Leo Babauta, creator of Zen Habits. Good to be here with all of you. Get myself in a good frame. How does that look? Everything look good? All the hairs in my head in place? Okay, good to see you. Hi, Diana. Welcome anybody who's here. Um, So I'm glad to be joining everybody. Today is a beautiful morning here in Northern California. It is sunny. It's supposed to be hot today. We're gonna get up to like over 100 degrees, like 39 Celsius, something like that. I'm not good at conversions, but great to be here with all of you. Um, and in this this YouTube live, we're going to be talking about inner peace, creating inner peace in our lives. So that's the topic we have. I want to say hi to Diana. Diana is a member of the Zen Habits team and specifically the one who, amongst many other duties and superpowers, she has been helping to create this YouTube channel and this YouTube live. And so I want to give credit to Diana for all the work you've done. And I want to also celebrate with all of you and Diana that we've passed 10,000 subscribers, which was our short-term goal. And so, yay, celebration. So happy that we've been growing this community. And these lives are a way to connect the community. So I'm happy for anyone who's joining right now. We've been trying to do these about once a month. Some months we take a break, but about once a month we've been doing these YouTube lives. And we pick topics that I think are especially relevant to people who have been commenting. So if you're a subscriber and you comment, there's a topic that you'd really like us to focus on, to make videos for, but also do these lives, please let us know. You can also let us know in the comments of this live in the chat. Hi, Stephanie. Good to see you. Stephanie is a member of our Fearless Mastery program and writing a really cool book right now. And so leave a comment in the chat if there's a topic you'd like us to do a live about in the future. But this one is creating a peaceful inner life. I'm just looking at my notes here. So the topics we're going to be covering here are the myths about inner peace that keep us searching in the wrong places, the importance of practicing before things get chaotic, how small intentional challenges can build resilience, and ways to access stillness when things feel uncomfortable. So we chose this topic because I think this is especially relevant these days. These days, it doesn't matter where you're living in the world. I know people are living in, coming in from all over the place. But these days, the world can feel more chaotic, stressful, anxiety filled, overwhelming than ever before, with political situations, global multiple crises, a pandemic and global warming, to wars going on in places that are just really terrible. The news is filled with anxious things, but we're also in an age of overwhelming digital lives. Lots of things to work to do in our work lives where we're feeling overwhelmed and behind. And then we add on top of all of this beautiful chaos, social media and AI, and none of these things are bad. I don't have anything against AI or social media or work, but these things can add up to just a lot going on, and we can feel very overwhelmed. And so, how do we find peace in the midst of that? Inner peace is the question. I find this to be a really important topic. And I'm going to get a bit personal here, and talk about a situation going on in my personal life. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but how I'm working with it in terms of inner peace. But if I'm going to be personal, I'd love to know who I'm being personal with. So I see we have some people here watching. If you could, I see Diana and Stephanie have put something into the chat. But if you could put into the chat, where you are in the world, just so I know um, who I'm talking to. So like what country or city um, that you're in. How's your day? And that way I know like I'm talking to human beings. It's not just some bots in the chat. And then I'll start talking about my personal crisis that's been going on and looking at it as a microcosm of what's going on in the world. Okay, and then how do we bring the practice of inner peace to that peaceful inner life? David from England. I know David. Beautiful. Lovely, fresh, sunny day. Scott from Philly. Awesome. Um, amazing. Nashville. For some reason, I've been talking to like a number of people in Nashville lately. A couple of them in Fearless Mastery. One of them is a coaching client. And then another one was just someone who joined one of my programs. But I've been talking to a bunch of people in Nashville, and they've been talking about how hot it is and how many people are moving to Nashville. So it seems to be a popular place these days. Um, okay, so great to be talking to some humans. Awesome. Welcome. Hot and crowded. Um, so in my personal life, I'm going to use this again as a microcosm of what's happening in the world. In my personal life, we've gone through a family crisis lately. Family member went through a crisis, and because it was such a really huge crisis for them, me, my wife, and other kids were also going through the crisis. So it's like a group crisis, basically. And before you get too worried for me and the family, things are a lot better right now. But the month of August has been one of the hardest times of my life. So we're good now. Things have taken a turn for the better. It's like we were going through a huge storm, and the clouds have parted and the sun is shining now, and I'm feeling really happy through all of that. But it was a really dark month for me, a really tough month for not only me but our family. I'd say one of the hardest times of my life. So again, I'm not going to go into the details because of privacy, but some really hard stuff. And so, from my perspective, I've been not only trying to be there and help that particular family member, but also be there and help our whole family deal with the emotions coming up and the how to navigate the situation. Really holding space for their emotions, and then of course there's my emotions, right? So my stuff comes up, whether it's fear and anxiety and overwhelm, or helplessness, powerlessness, grief, despair. All of that stuff comes up. And so that's coming up in me, it's coming up in everybody else, and I'm really holding space for my own emotions and theirs, and trying to navigate all of this with a sense of like inner like groundedness. And so what you can see is this has been a lot. There's a lot going on, and I'm going to talk about how I've navigated that. But I also want to connect it to your lives and the world and like what's going on in the world. So, I'm not going to go into the details of what's going on in the world, but I think you can all really get we're all going through a version of this, some kind of crisis or multiple crises going on. And we're not only having our own emotions coming up, the same ones that I mentioned, right? Fear and anxiety, overwhelm, frustration and anger often, um, resentment, helplessness, powerlessness, pointlessness. All of this stuff comes up. Despair and grief and sadness. All of this stuff comes up for us in the midst of crises. And that's not just for us, but for people who we work with and live with and love, friends, our community, the world is all experiencing this. And so, just like me and this little microcosm with me and my family, I have to hold space for my own emotions and then as well for theirs. I don't have to, I choose to. And, um, and that can be really difficult, but also it's an incredible place to practice. And I've been practicing for years and years now, decades now. And so I'm bringing that practice to the crisis that I've been going through. It hasn't been easy, but I really am proud of how I've held space for others, how I've taken care of my own emotions, and how I have actually found a degree of inner peace in the midst of that, some calm. Hi, Nicole from Florida. Happy Sunday. Awesome. We're experimenting. This is an experiment, by the way. See if people want to come and join this YouTube live on a Sunday. So glad that you all have. So we're kind of experimenting. When do people want to do this? On a weekday, on a Saturday, on a Sunday? Um, I think it's a nice thing to come and talk about inner peace on a Sunday. So I'm glad you're all here. Jennifer from England, sunny, but autumn is in the air. I feel you. We're very much summer heat where I am right now, but I'm looking forward to a little bit of turning towards autumn. Okay, so how have I navigated all of this? So before I go into how I've navigated this personal crisis, I want to talk about some myths. So a lot of times people have myths about inner peace, and um, and I think that those can get in the way. So first of all, there sometimes one of the myths is that it can come easily, like somehow we do a 5 step method, and then boom, I have inner peace and it's amazing and my life is chilled and I'm all zenned out and that's just how life is, right? Now, I don't think the people attending this might have that myth, but I do think that there is some kind of myth there. And what I want to say is that it takes some practice, it takes some work. We don't just come by this for free. It cost us something to actually cultivate this. We have to actually be willing to meet the difficulties in our lives instead of shying away from it. We have to be willing to work with it and to breathe through all of it and experience all of it. So I'd say that would be one myth. Another one is that we should have inner peace and we shouldn't have turbulence. And so when you kind of go after this inner peace, you might be like, okay, cool. I'm like making progress here. I'm starting to feel more peaceful and calm during my day. And then something hits and you feel a lot of turbulence, like a crisis. And then you're like, I thought I had inner peace. I thought I had Zen. And then you feel bad that you are feeling what you're feeling. And I think that's the problem with the myth that like we should have inner peace and we shouldn't have turbulence. The problem is that when we do have turbulence, because we're human, we think that there's something wrong with that. So I actually think that it's a part of it. We have to be willing to have some turbulence on this journey toward a more cultivating inner peace. And then another myth is that they are separate things. Turbulence on one side and inner peace on another. It's like, okay, well, it's like black and white, daylight and day and night, right? Um, but actually, I don't think that they're separate. We can have turbulence, and actually, inner peace can be found in the midst of the turbulence. In fact, I would say one of the insights that I've had around inner peace is that actually learning to just allow that kind of experience of all of our experiences, whether it is turbulence or anxiety, fear, all of the things that I've mentioned, anger. If we learn to accept all of those emotions, all of those experiences of life. We learn to relax with them. We learn to bring love to them. We learn to open to all experiences of life. This is actually the path that I found, or at least a path towards inner peace, is to embrace all of life, including the turbulence, the chaos, the crises, the emotions of others around us. Once we can accept our own emotions, we start to relax with the emotions of others. Okay, so these are some of the myths. There's others. Another one. Oh, okay, here's another myth that I think is really important to talk about. Another is that we need to get away from chaos, away from crises, away from our lives in order to achieve inner peace. So this is kind of the imagery of going to a monastery and sitting there and meditating. I'm away from my life, or a meditation retreat. I think a meditation retreat and monasteries are amazing, but this would be the idea. I'm going to go on retreat and then I'll have inner peace. But then what happens when you come back to your life? Like, what happens then, right? We like, we lose all of it. And it's like, oh, what's wrong with me? I lost it all. And so we have to like go away again. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go out, go sit on the mountain, or go sit on the beach. And we have to kind of like remove all of the turbulence of our lives, all of the stressors in order to have inner peace. And I think that's a myth, to retreat from life. Now, I do think that it can help to retreat, to practice a bit. So those things can be really helpful. This is why I hold retreats myself. Let's go somewhere else to this beautiful spot and then practice together. I think that's helpful. But I think that it's a myth that we need to do that in order to achieve this. We can meet our lives, we can be engaged with the world, we can be in the midst of chaos and crises and emotions and still have inner peace. We can still practice. And in fact, I actually think that it's a necessary part of the practice. You can't just practice in some retreat and just stay there and then think that you've cultivated all of the capacities and skills needed. You've done some really good work, but you're still going to have to come back and engage with the world. There's a famous saying about uh, how we can achieve peace on retreat, but wait until you come back and meet your family again. like that's where you can really get tested, right? So I think that's true, not only our family but our work and what's going on in the world. We not only want to be able to engage with all of it, I think it's a necessary part of this. Okay, so these are some of the myths. Of course, I can go deeper into that if needed, but I want to also touch on the importance of practicing before things get chaotic. Now, if you're like, well, Leo, things are already chaotic, you're kind of giving me this message too late. True. Okay. Totally true. But for me, in the microcosm of the family crisis that I talked about, I benefited from a lot of practice when things were not so chaotic. So, for example, sitting in the morning. This is something that I've done for years. I don't always practice it. I'm not perfect with that practice. Some people are like, I've meditated every single day for the last 25 years. And I think that's amazing. I really acknowledge them for that, but that's not me. I kind of go on and off. But I realize that the importance of practicing in the mornings when things are nice and calm, my day hasn't gotten chaotic yet. Practicing there helps me for when I'm in crisis. It helps me for when things get busy and overwhelming. Phil's here, Mr. Ruttons. So glad you made it. Better late than never. Mm. So, so practicing, in the mornings is good. Practicing when our days are nice and calm, and practicing when our lives are calm is really important. Going on retreat is also important. Meditation retreats or other kinds, or just your own personal retreat. And the reason why we want to practice when things are not chaotic is because it gives us a lower level of difficulty. A lot of times people are like, I want to start with the highest level of challenge. That's a bad training method. If you want to like start your running career by running an ultra marathon, tomorrow, right? No, build up to that, right? Start with, can you run half a mile or maybe walking for a while and then sprinkle in a little bit of running into your walking. And then you're doing a 50-50 mix of running and walking. And eventually you can run a mile without stopping. But you don't start by running the 50-mile ultra marathon. That is not the way you start. And so if you want to start by taking on a crisis before you sat in quiet when things are calm, I think that's the wrong order of operation. So we want to start with really calm time when things are you have a little bit of peace. And so if you're in chaos right now, you might be like, well, then how do I practice? Because I'm at a level 10 right now. Okay. You can still practice with that, but I would recommend go out for a walk if you can. If you have a minute, go out for a walk, even just for a minute, and find some space. Could be out in nature if you can, or find a quiet room if at all possible. If there's no quiet room, go outside. It doesn't have to be perfectly peaceful, but a little bit of space and practice there. But if your life isn't in full crisis mode, it's just a bit chaotic, then find some, create some space. It could be in the evenings. It could be when you're laying down for bed and you want to lay back and you start meditating, laying down with your eyes closed, and you fall asleep 2 minutes and do it. Great. You practice there. Or you wake up in the morning and before you get going with the day, you just sit up in bed and you breathe a little bit. But we want to practice at a lower level because it teaches us how to practice at the next level. So keep practicing at harder and harder levels, but start with a little bit of a calm situation. And how do we practice there? Well, we want to practice is finding a little bit of a quiet space, sitting upright. You can close your eyes or you can leave them just slightly open so you can kind of take in light. And then you can start to tune into the sensations of your body. So notice your breathing. Notice how your body is feeling as sensations. So dropping out of the story or like kind of thoughts about our body, and more just noticing sensation. And if you just do that, that is already a really good practice. If you notice the sensations of your emotions, that's also really good. So, oh, I'm feeling riled up right now. I'm feeling really anxious. Okay, where are the sensations of anxiousness in your torso? Where are they located? What are they like? Start to bring curiosity towards them. If you can do that practice, it is really, really incredible. If you notice your thoughts coming up that pull you away from the sensations, just label it as a thought and come back to the sensations. If you want a little bit of a bonus thing, you might notice what is the thought? Maybe I can just like kind of notice what is that thought and don't get engaged with it. Just kind of observe. My thought is, I need to go and attend to all my emails, right? I'm busy. I need like, when is this going to be over, right? Whatever the thought is, or I'm doing this wrong, or I should have been meditating every day, or whatever it is, start to notice those. Leo, full power again. Okay, so let me. So I practice a lot in calmness and a little bit of a calmer situation before things get chaotic. And so I'm going to start talking about my practice in crisis, and then I can talk about how to build towards that. Practicing at dawn is so peaceful. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, that is actually to me one of the beautiful things about a practice like that. It doesn't have to be super long, it doesn't have to be formal, but just giving yourself a moment of peace. What I like to think about is like how lovely that is as a gift to myself, just to sit in a little bit of quiet and a beautiful time of day. I think dawn is the perfect time. I think dusk is also quite lovely. In the winter, I actually like to sit in the dark. I think it's really, really sweet. So you're just gifting yourself with this sweet practice. Okay, so let me talk about my crisis. So imagine this, right? There's a family member who you love who's going through a really hard time, and a lot of stuff is coming up for them, a lot of fear, right? And all other emotions. And then the other family members, a lot of stuff is coming up for them. Let's say fear, frustration, confusion is another one, overwhelm. And then for yourself, all of this is coming up. And so what we notice is there's inner turbulence and emotions, and then outer turbulence and emotions, the what's going on for other people. And then there's the actual situation that needs to be navigated. So if we can distinguish between these, that can really help. So I that's what I would do is I would distinguish between them. And of course, if there is something going on right now that's an emergency, you would tend to that person. But if it's not an emergency in this moment, what I would do is I would check in with my own emotions. And I'd be like, "Ooh, I'm really riled up," or "I'm feeling really tight and like a lot of fear, confusion." And then I would see like, how do I just allow those emotions to be there and let them settle down a little bit? So I would go somewhere if I could, go out for a short walk. If it wasn't, if there wasn't something to deal with in this moment, I would go out, close my eyes and breathe, just like I've been practicing thousands of times before. And I would feel those emotions, and then I would just allow them to be there as if it was totally okay to feel some fear or grief or frustration or confusion or overwhelm. So I would if it was totally okay to feel these things, what if it was just an experience in my body? We're having an experience in our bodies every moment of the day. Sometimes it's like joy and inspiration. Sometimes it's like you're just feeling alive from moving or dancing. Sometimes it's love, and then sometimes it's fear. And what if all of those were just experiences of our lives? When I say just, like there's nothing extra that needs to be added other than it's an experience in this moment. And if you think of them all as experiences, they're all just a set of sensations in this moment. And we can be like, whoa, okay, I can actually experience all of this, a wide range of things, and there's no problem with any of it. We don't have to add problems to it, add extra significance. It's just sensation going on in this moment. And if we do that, we can actually have a relaxed attitude with the sensations, the experiences, the emotions we're having. So I just relax, allow myself to experience what I'm experiencing. And I think of it as BPL, breath, presence, love. So I just breathe, give a little bit of breath to this experience, this emotion. Doesn't need to go away, but I can add a little bit of breath. And that just means a slower, deeper breath. It just aerates it, just makes it a little bit more spacious. Presence is just a little putting my attention on there for a little bit. It's so gentle, attentive, not like I need to fix it or I hate it kind of presence, but just like gentle and friendly. And then love is just a warm, kind of syrupy love that I pour on any emotion that needs it. So if I give myself those three things, BPL, breath, presence, love, I feel like it's totally okay to feel what I'm feeling. And it's not a big deal. So that is actually inner peace when you're feeling some stuff. Nice to see you, Dave. Good to have you here. Okay, so breath, presence, love, and I just allow the feeling to be there, and it's just no big deal. There's no problem having that emotion. If you practice that during your day, and you have, dozens of times a day to practice, if you notice a few of them and you practice with it, amazing. So that's what I practiced during this crisis. I would go find a little bit of space, or maybe I'm sitting in, an emergency room, just waiting there, and I just practiced a little bit. And then Having practiced that, I can now practice that with this loved one. So they're going through their stuff. Can I just give them a bit of breath, presence, and love? They don't need to know that I'm practicing. I breathe with them and make it okay that they're feeling some fear. I don't have to say anything. I just breathe and allow them to feel what they're feeling and say, it's okay. I know you're feeling some fear. It's totally understandable. Here with you. Some presence. So I'm just there with them. I don't need to do anything. It's a loving, attentive presence. They don't need to change. They don't need to be fixed. I don't need to be upset that they're feeling some fear. I'm just there with them. And then some love. I love you. And I don't have to say it, but I might. I love you. I might give them a hug. I might give them some friendliness. I might just let them know, like, I got you. We got you. We're here with you. I know this is hard. I'm sorry you're going through this. Simple things like that. And that's with this one particular loved one going through the crisis. Then I might turn toward my wife, do the same kind of practice with her. Same exact thing with my other kids. Not necessarily all at the same time in the same room, but maybe. But one at a time. And then let's say we're all in a room together. I can do the same thing with the group. Breath, just breathe. I don't need to tell them I'm doing this. Some presence and some love. And I can do that with all of them at once. We're just in this together. And I might give them some reassuring words. I know this is hard. We're all going through this. And this is hard. And, um, none of this is easy. And it's okay that you're feeling what you're feeling. And, we got this. We're in this together. We can do this. So just giving them some reassuring words like that can really help. So if you're just joining, I noticed a few people joined. We're talking about inner peace, but I'm talking specifically about a crisis that I've gone through this month with my family. We're all okay. Things are a lot better these days, or today, than they were 2 weeks ago. But it was a really hard crisis, and I've been navigating it with a sense of cultivating inner peace for myself and bringing that to my loved ones. And I'm talking about this as a microcosm of what we're all going through, the crises that we're all facing in our lives, in the world. Okay, so that's kind of a shorthand. I could go much deeper if you have questions. The shorthand of what I've been going through in my own life. Um, but yeah, so that's the microcosm. So let's talk about how small intentional challenges can build resilience. So how did I build the resilience to be able to deal with all of this? I did it with very small challenges. So for example, maybe I'm going to do a focus session today where I write my book. Okay, is that a crisis? A crisis? No. Writing my book is, potentially a pretty simple, calm activity, right? I'm not fighting a fire. I'm not in a war. I'm not dealing with a medical emergency. I'm just writing a book. But stuff comes up, right? Emotions, fear, resistance. And so I can practice with that for 30 minutes to an hour. And it's a small intentional practice where stuff will definitely come up, but it's at a lower level. I'm not facing a 9 out of 10 in terms of emotions. I'm facing a 3 or 4 out of 10. So I highly recommend somewhere between 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 if you want to get a little bit more advanced. Max 7 out of 10 in terms of intensity of emotions. But you can do that with a focus session. You can do that with a workout. You can do that with meditation. You can do that with, I'm going to have a difficult conversation. But you want to be working at a 3, 3 or 4, 5 usually, maybe 6 or 7 if you've been practicing for a bit. Don't go above that in terms of cultivating an intentional practice. And then with those practices, those intentional smaller practices, we want to do the same thing that I just talked about that I did with my emotions and my family's emotions. We just notice the emotions coming up in our bodies as sensation, as an experience, and then we bring a sense of awareness, presence, We deepen our breath, give it a sense of spaciousness, just a friendly presence, and then we bring some love. And then from that, we can then start to take some action. Because what you'll notice is in our lives, we can cultivate inner peace, but inner peace without action is, well, it's good, but it's not enough, right? We actually have to take action. With this book, just breathing and bringing presence and love to my emotions isn't going to write the book. I have to actually write the book. With my family, just bringing breath, presence of love doesn't actually help. We actually have to navigate the external circumstances of the crisis. With work, we need to tackle our work tasks, right? With the world, we have to get engaged with the world. We can't just retreat. So bringing inner peace, I think, really helps us to take that action because it helps with the resistance. It helps with the panic we're feeling. It helps with all of the things that makes us want to run away and avoid and just numb ourselves out. So we can bring inner peace and engage without having to avoid because we're able to regulate and soothe our emotions. I also believe that the actions that we take from this sense of inner peace are they become more appropriate as responses. So, for example, if there's a crisis going on and I'm feeling panicked, I'm going to take some actions from that that aren't necessarily helpful. Maybe they actually become harmful. But if I can breathe, calm myself, find a sense of inner peace, and then take some actions there, they're going to be much more appropriate. And from a scientific point of view, what we're doing here is we are moving ourselves from the state of the from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. I think I got that right. I sometimes flip those, but basically we're going from the fight or flight, fight, flight, fawn, freeze kind of mode, that modality, the stress kind of response to the like calmed response that we might have during a more peaceful time. And we can intentionally create that by the things that I just said, a sense of breath, presence, and love, some stillness. And I'm going to talk about some physiological ways to actually change ourselves from one state to another. So when we get into that fight or flight mode, to put it shortly, just that kind of fight or flight kind of response, our brains and our nervous systems are activated to like run, to fight, to do whatever we need to do, right? And we're actually activated all day long a lot of times because we are on social media and that's like, right? We're watching the news and it's like, we're reading the news. We're engaged with our work, which is, right? So we're like, oh my God, there's like so much going on. We're not actually in danger, but it feels like it to our nervous system. It feels like it. And if we are on in that mode 10, 8, 10, 12, 18 hours a day, we are going to have a worsened mental condition. We're going to be exhausted. We're not going to be able to sleep well. Our health is going to start to get worse. And guess what? This is only going to become a worse and worsened cycle. So that's what we're facing. Anyone here relate to that? um, awesome. We have someone sharing, I've been going daily on Zen habits between 2011 and 2015. Thank you, Leo, for the 4 years you accompanied me. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm glad you interrupted and thanked me. So great to connect with people who have followed my work over the years at different points. Okay, so how do we change from that fight or flight kind of mode to a calmer physiological state, calmer nervous system? You're welcome, Scott. Thank you for reading and thank you for the gratitude. So I'm going to talk about a few very basic, simple methods to shift ourselves. A couple of them I've already mentioned. So breath. Breath is one that I think is pretty well known at this point and has been actually proven in a number of studies. When we are in fight or flight mode, our breathing constricts. we go into a shallower, faster breath. And that is, it's kind of like to an extreme, that would be like hyperventilating, right? But we kind of need that kind of faster breathing in order to like go on the run, to attack, to whatever we defend ourselves, right? Now, in our daily lives, we actually don't need that kind of breathing. That actually isn't helpful. But when our minds are triggered, when our nervous system is triggered, that's the kind of breathing that our bodies think we need, and so we start doing it that way. If we are in a calmer mode, we're just like zenned out, our breathing is slower and deeper. And so the causality actually goes both ways, right? So if we can actually slow down the breath, deepen it down into the belly, it actually sends a signal to our nervous system, hey, we must not actually be faced by a tiger, right? So that's one that actually really works. And so if you do nothing else but slow down your breathing, you will probably be in a much better state more often during the day. So that's one. But let's keep going with this theme, right? And by the way, I'm gonna leave the last 15-ish minutes to 10, 15 minutes to open for questions if you haven't. You can ask me about anything, not just this topic. So breathing, slowing down the breath changes our nervous system. So another one is relaxing the muscles of the body. And we can do this in conjunction with breathing. So for breathing, notice where there's tension in your body. Maybe it's in your jaw. So you're like clenching your jaw. Like relax your jaw. If your fists are clenched, that's another one. Just relax them. If your if your abs are clenched, relax that a bit. So just notice, are your toes curled up and clenched? And just like do a little bit of a scan. And there's the kind of old method of like tightening the muscle first and then relaxing. That works pretty well. Sometimes I just relax it. I think either one is fine. So we're slowing down the breath, relaxing our muscles. Closing the eyes is actually helpful. If you do both of those two things and then and close the eyes, we would rarely close our eyes if we're being attacked by a tiger, right? So if you close your eyes, if you lay down, just imagine, what would I not do if I'm being attacked by if there's a tiger in the room? Am I laying down? Are my muscles relaxed? Is my breathing slow? Are my eyes closed? So these are all nice things to do, and you can kind of lay in yoga. They have corpse pose, so you kind of lay with your palms facing up, your legs splayed out or stretched, breathing slow, eyes closed. This is a beautiful corpse pose. Shavasana is a way to signal to your nervous system, actually everything is fine. Um, so some version of that. You don't have to actually be laying down in corpse pose. You don't have to lay down. You can sit. You can be anywhere. You can be on, on the bus. I'm totally safe. And then there's mental chatter as well. So usually our mental chatter, our inner talk, is negative. This is because we think we're in danger, right? So it's a response to feeling that we're in danger. It's like, this person shouldn't have said that to me, or what are people gonna think of me, or like, why are you like putting yourself out there? You should just keep yourself safe. Not usually in those words, but some version of that. Why aren't you working harder, you lazy bastard? Right? Whatever it is, like we have these negative things, and if we have positive self-talk, we would not do that if we thought we were in danger. So if you're just like, man, you are a good person, you are good enough, right? These kind of mental kind of affirmations. Anyone ever seen Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live? Stuart Smalley did all these like Positive affirmations. I actually think this guy was onto something. They were laughing about it, but I actually think Stuart Smalley was onto something. Um, I think if we say nice things to ourselves and about others and about the world, this is a positive thing that triggers our brain to think, oh, I must be safe. If I can think positive things, I must be safe. And so, again, the causality goes both ways. And by the way, this also addresses a cognitive bias towards the negative. So I think it's well known, most of you here know that if you get, let's say you get 1,000 positive comments about something you've done, right? Let's say you made some art and you got like 1,000 people said, "Oh, that's really cool. I like it. It's, really creative, like nice work." And you get one negative comment. Guess what your brain is going to focus on? The negative one. It will clamp down and be like, "Oh, why did they say that? Like they're wrong or whatever it is, or like I'm an idiot for putting myself out there. My work sucks." Whatever it is, you will focus on the one negative comment. And this is well known, right? We all know this. But it's not just with negative comments. We focus on the negative everywhere in our lives. So, for example, let's say you did some really good work today. You're like, oh, amazing. But you're like, oh, crap, there's still 5 things on my to do list that I didn't do. I failed, right? It's like you look at all the places you fall short. Oh, I exercised this week, but I didn't exercise on Saturday. Ah, I'm so lazy, right? Or like I've done a really good job with my habits, but freak yesterday I missed it, and why did I break my streak? And it's like, well, you just did 12 days in a row and you missed one day. Well, what about those 12 days? Like you're focused on the negative, and we all do that. And the thing is, there's always going to be a place where we are falling short, but we're focused on that. And so a way to combat this cognitive bias towards the negative is by finding ways to notice and acknowledge and celebrate the positive in our lives. And there's a number of ways to do that. One of the most kind of common ways is gratitude practice, right? People roll their eyes when you suggest gratitude practice because you've heard it 1,000 times. But one of the first things that I did to change my life was actually a morning gratitude practice back in 2005. 20 years ago, I started a gratitude practice. It wasn't the first time I'd done that, but it was one of the things that helped me to get the ball rolling. I did it. I wrote a list every single morning and I started to internalize this habit of gratitude. Another thing that you might have heard of is an awe walk, AWE, also known as a wonder walk. You go out and you find wonder. I've also heard recently the idea of glimmers, seeing these little like magical glimmers in the world, little moments of wonder and magic. Um, Another one that I really like doing is celebrating anything that you've done that's positive. Spend some time at the end of each day looking back on your day. What do I want to celebrate about today? Right? Like, I actually answered that email that I've been putting off for 2 weeks. You might focus on, oh, but I put it off for 2 weeks. That sucks, right? Or you might focus on, I did it. And you might focus on the 10 other ones you haven't done. But can you just focus on celebrating that one that you actually did, that moment of courage? And find things to celebrate every single day and actually celebrate them. Like, if you have a big one, take your family out to dinner. Do something. It doesn't have to be something that costs money, but like do something. Um, go out on a date with your partner. You know, give yourself a nice spa day. Again, these are maybe money ones, so it doesn't always have to be something that costs money, but like something you're like, man, high five yourself. Just like, this is amazing. Tell others about it. Scream it from the rooftops that you have done something really cool. If we start to say these positive things, positive affirmations, gratitude, wonder, appreciation, celebration of anything we've done positive, we fight the cognitive bias and we start to tell our brains that we're safe. So these are some of the physiological ways to address the stress state that we're often in. I think that's all I wanted to um, talk about for this topic, but I also want to open it up for questions. Lying down pose with a blanket over me, it does help. Awesome. Jennifer says, I'm not bad at focusing on breath when under pressure. Nice. That's something to celebrate. But if my emotions become too strong, the only thing I found to bring things down is either walk away or physically jump up and down. Okay, Jennifer, that is amazing. So there is this thing. If you are super stressed out, jump up and down and shake your hands out like this while you're jumping up and down like this. And what happens is it's almost like you're shaking the stress hormones out of your body. So jump up and down, shake your hands out like this, like you're shaking all the stress out. If you do that for 2 minutes, you will be a lot less stressed. So absolutely. Walking away is good. I like to go out for a walk. Um, any kind of physical movement is helpful if you are feeling if the emotions are too intense. So the one where I said sitting with it is usually when the emotions are again from a 3 to a 7. If they are a 9 or a 10, you actually should do something like Jennifer said. Distracting yourself and comforting yourself are actually appropriate responses when your emotions are 9 at a or a 10 out of 10 intensity. Okay. Um, a couple of questions from relaxing rain sounds and at David. Thanks, Diana. So, relaxing rain sound asked, my highs are high and my lows are very low. How can I begin to exist in the center and not feel such elevated emotion, both negative and positive? Um, this is a good question. So we really swing far, right, from one to the other. So first of all, it is actually possible that there's a some kind of condition that causes that. So you know, bipolar is one example of that. A lot of people who have bipolar disorder are undiagnosed. So I'm not saying you have bipolar uh, at all, but that would be an example and a kind of an extremer example where I actually think talking to a therapist or a psychiatrist can really help with wild swings. For some people, it's more medium swings and that you might be dealing with. And what I would suggest is when lows get low, what we want to do is to make that okay. A lot of times people react really intensely against their emotions, and that actually, I think, causes bigger swings. And so the way we start to um, bring it to a more manageable swing, swings are good. We don't want always stable. It's freaking boring if you're just always one note, right? We want to have a variety in our lives, a variety of emotions. It's when people don't want a variety that they actually cause more of the swings. It's because they're like, I want to stay in this like narrow middle, stress. Like I just want to be in this little bit. That's all I want. And when it gets out of that, I'm like, no. So that's actually when we resist our emotions is when we actually cause wilder swings. So when we get low or high, just appreciate something about that. You're like, oh man, what is there to appreciate about sadness, about being down, about pointlessness? And just really bring a sense of love to that. When we're feeling low, another way to put it is we're feeling unloved. And that is a human thing. We all feel unloved sometimes. And so when we're feeling low, if we think of it as I'm feeling unloved right now, then you might think of that as something you can actually address. What how do I how do I help myself to feel loved, right? And so that could be reaching out to someone who could love you, right? I need some hugs right now. Maybe you get on there's hotlines actually. If you don't have any loved ones in your life, there are hotlines where you can find a friend. Uh, look up Find a Friend hotline, something like that. Um, but it doesn't have to be reaching out to others. You can give yourself some love. So it's a practice of self-love, and that could be, you know, self-compassion kind of meditation. We have that in my Fearless Living Academy. By the way, if you're not in Fearless Living Academy, there's a lot of good stuff on a lot of the stuff I've talked about here. We have courses on self-compassion, on mindfulness and meditation, and a number of other really important things. Fearlessliving.zenhabits.net. Um, there, Deanna just posted it. Thank you, Deanna. That's my monthly membership program with a lot of courses and webinars and community and focus sessions and lots of other good stuff in there. Um, but yeah, self-compassion, giving yourself a hug, you know, just giving yourself some comfort, a hot bath, hot tea. These are all really things to make yourself feel more loved. So I think that really helps. And then I do think talking to someone about it, a therapist, a good friend, having someone who you can externalize this with is really, really helpful. Um, there's a lot more to that topic, relaxing rain sound. So I'm not going to go super into it right now, but at least that'll be a good start. We've got a few minutes. I'm going to talk about David's question, and then we'll close here. Did you ever get overwhelmed and need to soothe instead of accept? If so, how did you know? So yeah, again, if the feelings get to 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 intensity, that might not be something that we have the capacity to sit with. These days, I feel I have the capacity to sit with 8 or 9 out of 10 in intensity, but 10 out of 10, which is really rare for me these days because I'm willing to sit with the 4, 5, 6, or 7 out of 10. The 10 out of 10s rarely ever come. But in those moments when it's a 10 out of 10, or I would say again a 9 or 8 out of 10, I think it really helps to actually do something to get out of that. So distracting, soothing, comforting, all of these things that we kind of judge, these are actually appropriate responses in those kinds of moments. So again, if you want to get on your phone and scroll through social media, I actually don't think that it's super helpful most of the time, but in a 10 out of 10 emotions, like going through social media, it might be exactly what you need. You want to like zone out on YouTube or Netflix. Go ahead in those moments. And so if you try and sit with it and you're like, "Ooh, this is too much. I can't." Um, you might be willing to do it for like a couple of seconds. You're like, "Ooh, this is so hard. I can't. I can't. I can't. I can't." Then get out of it. You don't want to get yourself into a panic state. Soothe yourself with some of the other things that I mentioned. Get on a call with a friend or a therapist. Go for a walk or a jog. Do something to like soothe yourself. And how you know is because you cannot sit with it in the way that I talked about for more than a few seconds. If it is just so intense, you're just like, I can't do this. It's like jumping, you need to jump out of boiling water. That is a time when you need to distract yourself, soothe yourself, comfort yourself, numb out. It's totally okay for a little bit, just as a first aid kind of option. And then recognize, like, now I'm numbing out like all the time. I need to like engage a little bit. And sometimes it can help, again, to only focus on engaging and being with the feelings when they're down at a 3 or 4. Don't try and do the 8, 9, or 10. Those are too advanced if you haven't practiced with a 3 or 4 a whole bunch. Practice with a 3 or 4, then a 5 or 6, then a 7, and only after you've practiced with those levels for a while can you actually take on an 8 or a 9. And I would say a 10 out of 10, you should pretty much always, get out of it somehow. Distract yourself, do something. Okay, we are out of time. I am going to say goodbye. I want to say thank you to everybody who's joined. A couple of shout outs. If you want to join my Fearless Living Academy, the link is here in the chat, fearlessliving.zenhabits.net. In September, we are focusing on the theme of simplicity. So I actually think this is a good time to join if you haven't already. We have a ton of courses in there, a great community, accountability. All we talk about habits and facing our emotions and purpose and creating an impact in the world. I do these kind of webinars for 90 minutes for members every month. We have focus sessions where we work together. It's really good stuff. Also, I have a couple of open spots in my one-on-one coaching. So if you'd like um, to come do coaching with me, coaching.zenhabits.net would be the place to look. Come talk to me and just figure it out. If finances are in the way, let's talk about that as well. But I'm looking for some good people who are looking to do some important things in their lives and create some transformations. And yes, as Diana said, please do subscribe, do like this video, share it with others, stay engaged with the YouTube videos because I really love making them and I love it when you're engaged. Okay, thank you, Diana. Thank you, everybody here. I really appreciated all of you attending, and hopefully you got something out of it. I hope you have an amazing, peaceful rest of your Sunday. Talk to you all later. Bye, everybody.